There's a lot of stuff, that you could, I guess, break in Slate. You have to be pretty intentional about it. Like to the fact of like where you literally have to type, yes, I'm sure, delete these three things exactly in those words without misspelling it.
Welcome to Mission of Missions. I'm your host, Jeremy Tiers. This is the show designed to help you grow, both professionally and personally, in the fast-paced world of higher education. Every other Tuesday, I sit down with senior leaders, new professionals, and difference makers from across higher ed and beyond, where we'll share tips and strategies related to challenging topics like student recruitment, leadership, customer service, enrollment marketing, and time management. So if you're looking for practical advice and conversations that actually move the needle, this show's for you. Grab your notepad or fire up your notes app, and let's get into it. Hey everybody, it's Jeremy Tiers, and we are up to episode 86 of the Mission Admissions podcast. Nearly 2,000 colleges and universities now utilize Slate as their CRM, and during a lot of the training workshops that I lead with admissions and enrollment marketing teams, I continue to find that the majority of those staff members are using about 1/10 of the capability of their CRM, whether it is Slate or whatever they happen to have. Mainly a lot of times because they had one training, and like any of us, when we have one training, we don't retain everything. And so I thought it would be great to bring on a longtime friend of mine, Alex Williams, today, who is now the managing director at Huron. Alex has been in the Slate world for double-digit years now, and he actually started in 2015 working at Technolutions, aka Slate, as a program manager. So it's good to see you, my friend, and thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, man. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right, Alex. So I think the easiest place to start is I'll say boots on the ground, Alex, especially admissions counselors listening to this, and they are tasked to be able to go in and start to understand their CRM, and they kind of feel comfortable in Slate. Maybe they know how to use, a few of the different things, but overall, they're just not maximizing it as much as they can. Like, what advice would you give to somebody? Like, where do they start when it comes to just becoming more proficient in Slate on a day-to-day basis?
There's a ton of areas that you could really go to for this. I think Technolutions has done a really phenomenal job in the last couple of years, particularly building out the community forums. So if your institution has Slate already and you're already on board with that, that's where you want to start as a community forums. It's indexed really well. There's a ton of resources there. But most importantly, I think we've got institutions who are sharing processes and things that they're struggling with or cool things that they built to get inspiration for where to go.
I know I hear all the time how powerful those forums are. And so anything you can give as examples in terms of like schools will post this and they share this, and like what will people find on these forums if they actually spend time in them?
Yeah, I think like if you have a problem, the search functionality is really great. You type in your problem and like you will find other people who are talking about that and see where those solutions have kind of lended or what they've been able to do or how different institutions are approaching these various problems that they might have. That's on top of like the general resources that Technolutions has in there. But then also, selfishly for myself, there's the great preferred kind of partner area within the forums as well. And so you've got preferred partners who are sharing best practices and trainings and all sorts of other things that are advantageous and like free tools for users to get out there and kind of just focus on and learn from, which is great.
So then where do you feel like I'll say hiccup or roadblock is for so many of these schools that, again, may have one or two people who are pretty proficient, but like if I'll say the setup is there and the forms are there and the capability, like why are people not utilizing the CRM to their capabilities?
I think a lot of times it comes down to how institutions are staffed. More and more, we're seeing roles pop up that are specific to a CRM administrator or, an operations manager whose job is specifically in Slate or the CRM that they're focused on, which is great. But if that's not the case, and we've got an institution where we have two people who are recruiting 75% of the time and the other 25% of their role maybe to be building something in Slate, that's not allowing that person to really be proactive in their job because they're responding to, oh gosh, my query is broken and the student is where they should be in a particular bid. And so, when you don't have the ability to have time to focus on that, that can really kind of cause that. It's not a lack of wanting to do the work. It's just a lack of time because there's so many other things to do. But I would say if you do have the time, or even with that 25%, you can figure out a way to carve it out. You have to be intentionally curious, right? There's a lot. And that's why sometimes just going into those forums, or it's not just the forums, right? That's Technolutions kind of forum, but like there's the Slate Facebook group that's incredible. There's the Slack channel that's like unbelievable to be able to kind of connect with other users. There's tons of other resources that exist out there for users. You just have to be intentional with the time.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it is about being intentional and making time. I continue to hear as I'm on all these campuses, well, Jeremy, people keep adding stuff to my plate. Like, where am I supposed to find the time? And to Alex's point, any of you listening, it's not about saying, well, I don't know where I'm going to find the time. You just have to, I'll say audit your day and realize, are you, I'll say, not working as efficiently as you could be? And you could find that 20 or 30 minutes, right? If you just changed around some of your habits or your processes. So many people tell me, Alex, they are self-taught, like if they become a proficient in Slate, right? It's not like a school is giving them 20 different trainings, or they're just going in there and they're spending the time. And so community forums, Facebook groups, what about like if I want to start learning how to do things like queries, utilizing snippets and stuff like that? Like literally walk us through, Alex, the 101 level of, well, if I don't know how to do a query right now, and I'm not really, I've heard of snippets, but like I don't really use them. Like, where do I start to become, I'll say, more familiar and proficient with how I can utilize those to, again, help me be a better admissions counselor, territory manager, enrollment marketer?
Yeah. I would say like the best thing that you can possibly do is right? You can get into Slate, you can build a query, you can spin up a test environment. I mean, there's all sorts of environments that you can kind of stand up and play around in the system. And if you're not doing that, like you're doing yourself a disservice, because the best way to learn this system and most systems is literally by doing. I always tell new clients to Slate, new clients to Huron, if you are implementing, if you can figure out and understand fully how to build queries and how to build forms in the system, you can pretty much do everything, right? Because if we're going to build an email, the base of the email, it's a recipient list query. If we're going to build reports, it's built on queries. If we're going to build rules, they are queries, right? Application logic, they are filters, they are queries. And so understanding that tool, I think, is probably the most important in the system and where I would recommend most folks start. And they can get really, really complex. But that's the other thing is like, don't overcomplicate things. A big thing about moving into Slate or optimizing your system is really thinking about, what does this process really look like? Or what do I want this process to look like? And then figuring out, great, I've got this toolkit now. I know how to build queries. I know how to build forms. How do I pull all that together to build something really elegant, sustainable?
And I will, piggyback on Alex's point for any of you listening who are like, okay, Jeremy, what's something I can do to take, I'll say, the next, step in my career to just become, I'll say, potentially a middle manager or work towards becoming, a senior leader. So much of it is becoming comfortable with data, right, Alex? And just saying, all right, we have the tool, but I have so many, if I'm a territory manager, missions counselor listening to this, I have whatever the number is, we'll just say 1,000 admits, right, in my territory. Well, how do I decide who I could hypothetically be proactively reaching out to right now? If I can't, for example, go into Slate, I can't understand what, for example, my enrollment marketing team or whoever's sending those mass messages is sending. And then if I don't know which students have done what, aka what are those things that you put in a query, right, that Alex is talking about, to be able to say, oh, it's these 10, these 15, these 30 students who I probably need to pay more attention to, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say like when we're thinking about kind of who we should be reaching out to or how we can be more proactive, if you don't have the ability to do that, I think what you need to be is the person at the table that's asking, what are all of the data that we do have? And what are we doing with those data? And what data are we missing in this entire process, and figure out where those gaps are? Because when we want to figure out who to reach out to, right, it's not just driven by like who's in the pipeline or whatever, right? We need to be able to score those folks. So maybe it's building out a likelihood to apply or propensity to yield score within the system. If you're not the person to do that, that's okay. As long as you can communicate effectively what you need and know what those data are that would inform what that score could be, or looking back historically for the last 3 to 5 years to determine what behavioral kind of actions in the system are going to get us to a good spot where we can build those scores. That's how we can really start to do that. That's work that we do regularly with institutions to both help identify who we should reach out to at different stages in the funnel, but also how to streamline or further individualize communications regardless of where that student is.
What do you think the biggest Slate tool is that a lot of people aren't utilizing? I feel like one of them might be, the ability to utilize video. A lot of people are like, what do you mean I can send videos in Slate? I'm like, oh yeah, like it's there. But like, where do you see with a lot of clients, or just as you're having conversations with people, like, I don't know why people don't use this tool. It's a great tool that Slate, because I know Slate obviously built a lot of tools. So what's not getting utilized, Alex?
I think it's less about what's not getting utilized in the system because you utilize in the system what you need to meet your goals, right? You don't need to use everything in the system. I think there's good reason to explore it, right? But there are other platforms that might bolt in and do something a little bit better. And so you might need to do some analysis on that front. But where I think the market is going and where we are at Huron is really creating experiences. You said it at the beginning of this. There are 2,000 nearly institutions that are using Slate. God knows how many databases there actually are that are out there. When you have so many institutions who are doing that, the applications look the same, right? The status pages look the same. The event landing pages, they look the same. And so the way that you start to differentiate yourself is through design. And so like you need at this point talented dev designers to be able to do that, or you need to know what resources are out there in the market to help you build that so you can truly differentiate through brand. But even when you're doing something like that, you have to make sure that if you're going to differentiate through brand, that like you are aligned with what our institutional goals are. And we need to be building things to basically ensure that the experience for a student from the point of entry into the system or point of entry with an institution all the way through when they're a current student is consistent and coherent.
What's your response if I come to you and you happen to work at a college, Alex, on the enrollment marketing team, or you're an admissions leader and I'm an admissions counselor, and I say, Alex, I'm worried to go into Slate because I'm worried I'm going to hit a button and I'm going to like break it and delete everything. What do you say to me?
I mean, that's a concern for some people, but like you're not going to do that. There's a lot of stuff, that you could, I guess, break. It's like you have to be pretty intentional about it. Like to the fact of like where you literally have to type, yes, I'm sure, delete these three things exactly in those words without misspelling it. So, that fear, I think, just really should be removed. And if somebody is truly fearful about breaking something in the system, stand up the test environment and just do everything in there. You can't break anything in there, and you can't unintentionally send an email out.
And so break down again in layman's terms for everybody listening to this who's like test environment. Alex, what are you talking about? Like break that down for the listeners.
Yeah, so like there's a number of different environments that you can provision off of your kind of main, your live environment. And so like it will make a direct copy of your production environment, and you can kind of go in there and do all of the things that you would be able to do in your production environment, except you're not worrying about actually touching anything or inadvertently, like I just messaging a student or anybody else that might kind of be in the system. So there's a couple others. There's a showcase model. There's other things where you can get ideas and inspiration for kind of how other institutions have done it. The Technolutions has kind of provisioned those things. You can briefcase things through different environments. I mean, there's a lot that you could do on that front.
How do you think advances in AI are going to shift just what CRMs are doing right now?
I think it's going to shift drastically, right? Technolutions is going through kind of this era right now where they are embedding AI, more and more in the platform, which is great. Aaron Gore, who co-leads the Slate practice with me here at Huron, is in the middle actually with Dom Rosley on our team of doing a number of AI community-based conversations in the forums. So I think they've done 2 or 3 so far. There's 6 kind of total, and it's going to be things like how are we aggregating and summarizing data to generate, actionable insights in the system, or customizing like AI dashboards with relevant engagement metrics, or supporting coding and things like that from a design perspective. It's how do we leverage the tools as they exist in the system to, again, allow us to do our jobs more efficiently. There's definitely room to grow there, and Technolutions is focused on that. But then you also have to remember there's a whole ecosystem of AI organizations, companies that are out there. And so I think we need to be thinking strategically about how do they integrate with Slate effectively. Hall to just released the other day, kind of their new process that's fully integrated kind of with this Slate from a search communications perspective. And what does that look like? I think these are where the market is kind of going, and those are exciting things. It's not always that, Slate has to be everything for everyone. I think if there are companies that are doing, this has always been my stance, but if there are companies that are doing really interesting and cool things, why not figure out how to integrate those really well together? But it's evolving quickly, as we all know.
Yeah, it will be very interesting to see the shift. But I think the biggest thing I hope the audience takes away from our quick chat today is just you have to get in there and do. I mean, there is no solution for doing, right, Alex? You just, like you said, you're not going to get any better unless you go into that test environment, or you go into the community forums, the Facebook group, or whatever it is, and just start intentionally, right, learning, all right, practicing, redoing, going and asking questions. Oh, wait, so if I wanted to do this, how do I write that query? Or wait, what do I do with this snippet here? And how do I, and just constantly decide that you're going to prioritize it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have to make it a priority because it is an inevitable part of your job. Whether you're somebody who just goes in there and looks at reports, you're somebody who builds emails, or your application breaks, right? I mean, there's all of these kind of different components in the system. And it's not to say that one person needs to know everything about the entire system, right? Technolutions says we should have captains, for this database. And so what does that mean? It means we need an administrator. We need somebody who's heavily focused on operations. We need somebody who knows the marketing and the background. But those three people or those roles really need to be able to work together in a seamless way that can allow you to evolve the system over time.
Yeah. Last thing I do on every episode, Alex, is something I call fun rapid fire. So I'm just going to give you a handful of things and I want some quick feedback from you on each, okay?
We'll try.
Vacation spot that's currently on the bucket list. Where do we want to go?
Oh man, I just got back from vacation. My wife and I just went to St. Lucia and we didn't have our kids with us for the first time in 12 years. And it was the most glorious experience. So I would actually go back there because it's on my bucket list, but it was beautiful to spend some time, just the two of us.
Better beach spot, Nantucket or Rehoboth Beach in Delaware?
I love Rehoboth Beach. It's close to my heart, but I am going to be going to Nantucket this summer. So we'll see what that looks like. I haven't actually been there before, but I love a New England summer.
You have to give up one of these foods for the rest of your life, Alex. Are you giving up Maryland crab cakes or oysters?
Oh, God, this is rapid fire. I'm going to give up crab cakes, but only if I can still have crablet, like all of the other, but I can give up the cakes,
You're a big fan of gin. What's the best kind of gin?
Monkey 47, hands down, number one gin. It's amazing. Close calls, this Hendrix. I mean, you can't go wrong with it.
I love you to death. I don't know how you drink gin, man. I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm sorry. Known Alex for years. He loves his gin. I can't touch the stuff. You and your wife, Megan, much like Jenny and I did last year, you're north of 20 years now of marriage. What's the biggest lesson, whatever you're comfortable sharing, you feel like you've learned in 20 plus years now?
Learn how to communicate. I think communication's inherent in everything that I do, from my personal life to my professional one, and have fun. I think have fun is key also.
I can't punctuate that point enough. I mean, we intentionally now a couple of times a year, to Alex's point a second ago, find a way, even though we only have one daughter, to go do something on our own. And by go do something, I don't mean go have a date night around here, right? There's that, but go on a little 2-day trip together or just get away, right? And enjoy being around your significant other, or whoever you happen to, enjoy spending time with, right?
Yeah, totally.
Well, Alex, I appreciate you being on and giving some of those quick tips. I think that's really going to, I'll say, especially this spring and summer, not that I'll say those are the only times you can do professional development, but for anybody listening who's like, okay, I need some places I need to go into Slate and start. Hopefully listening to this now gives you a couple of things. And, if you feel like you become really good with all of that, go talk to, again, some of your team running the Slate instance and the CRM, because I have a feeling they can obviously help you on a whole bunch of other things. So I look forward to the next time we catch up, my friend. Thanks for listening to Mission Admissions. This show is a proud member of the Enrollify network, home to Higher Ed's the largest collection of podcasts. Enrollify is where higher ed goes to grow, so be sure to check out our other podcasts, webinars, video clips, blogs, and more. Visit Enrollify.org and subscribe for all the latest details and content drops directly to your inbox. Enrollify is brought to you by Element 451, the digital workforce platform for higher ed. Learn more at element451.com.